What's up, beautiful soul, and welcome to episode number 61 of the Energy Center podcast. It's Dana Teresa here, the Metaphysical Mentor. I am so in love with this episode already because there is an abundance of energetic shifts that you have the potential to receive as you listen to this show. Let me start by first saying thank you so much for tuning in from the bottom of my heart chakra, from the bottom of my big green heart. I am so blessed and thankful to have you as a listener, as a watcher. Thank you for tuning in. And the more you tune in, the more you like, give a heart, comment, share, and subscribe, the more we get to be a part of this revolution of love that's happening on this planet right now. So if you want to be a part of that revolution, if you want to continue to help generate more love, more compassion, more light around the planet, then please like, subscribe, do all the things so that we keep this energetic transmission moving. Now, let me shift gears a little bit and get into the numerology of this episode. Because when you add 6 plus 1, it equals 7. 7 is the number of the seeker and the shaman in numerology. 7 just also happens to be my life path number because I am deeply a seeker and I am a shaman in the core of my being, in my bones. It is the energetic work that I do with myself and with my clients. And when I was thinking into the theme for today's episode with what I wanted to transmit and share with you today, it came down to shadow work. And you know what seekers and shamans are really good at? It's about going deep into the shadows. It's about doing that deep inner work so that we can find more balance, more harmony in our life here on Earth at this time. And so in the shamanic work that I do, it does involve a lot of shadow work. It does involve helping people to connect with those deeper, maybe seen as darker parts of their being so that we can become more integrated, so that you can become more of your truth, more of your authentic self. So why is shadow work important? Shadow work is important because it helps us uncover who we truly are. It helps us to heal. It helps us to understand ourselves in a deeper, more loving and compassionate way. And it helps us actually not to spiritually bypass. It helps us not to just brush over or sweep things under the rug or keep things hidden in the closet. It helps us to actually find our sense of empowerment by facing these darker parts of our being. Let me share with you what shadow work actually is. What is shadow work? People might not understand it, and sometimes we've been talking about this a lot in the past episodes, and we haven't gone quite as deeply into it as I feel this topic deserves because it is so very important right now. It's so important on this planet. So what is shadow work? Shadow work is when you look into, with intrigue, with curiosity, with an open heart and an open mind, the parts of yourselves that need more healing, more love, more support. Shadows can show up in lots of different ways. How might you know that shadow work can benefit you? Is that maybe you are experiencing lots of triggers or strong, dense emotions are coming up and you don't really understand why. So a trigger happens when we get energetically activated, when we get something feels like it pokes us, and then we respond with anger, with fear, with pushing something away, with even like hatred sometimes, or just a big emotional response that we don't understand what the reason behind it is, even though inside we know, our subconscious knows, but the conscious mind is not aware. Wow, that person just said something pretty benign, and I got activated by it. I got triggered by it. I got angered by it. So that's one way to know that shadows might need your attention and might need your love, is that you have a triggering response to something that might be relatively benign. Another way to know when you might benefit from some shadow work is that you have a tendency to project onto others. What is projection? Projection is when we say to other people, or we think, or we express that this person is making me feel this way. We are projecting our emotions onto them, blaming them for the way that we feel. And I learned so long ago that we cannot blame others for how we feel, because our feelings are our own. Every time I have really removed this from my vocabulary, I've removed this statement from my expression. When you say, you're making me feel sad, or you're making me angry, or you're making me feel flaky, it's really a feeling that is within you, and that person is mirroring it to you. On a soul level, that person is trying to help you. Their soul is trying to support you on your soul's path to healing. And in most cases, unless you're dealing with a very highly consciously evolved being, the person isn't aware that they're doing it. They're just being themselves. They're just expressing themselves. They're just being themselves for who they are. And so if you have a tendency to say, this is making me, you are making me. When you notice yourself saying that, pause. And is that true? Is that person really making you feel angry, hurt, sad, flaky? Or are you feeling mad, angry, hurt, flaky? Whatever it is, those examples just came to me. So every time we feel like projecting our emotions onto someone else, it's actually an opportunity to connect to face, to work with our shadows. And the other way to know when we might benefit from some shadow work is when we notice we are judging others. So judgment, I feel like I can do a whole episode. Actually, each one of these things I could have its own episode. But when we are judging others, we are usually pointing out, noticing, observing something in someone else that we do not like about ourselves, or something that someone else has or is doing that we ourselves wish we had more of. So when we see someone who is super outgoing and very bold in who they are, and we get irritated by them, it's most likely because we wish we were more, you wish you were more outgoing and bold in your actions and had more of your power to display, to share with the world. When we are confronted or are seeing someone who, they're like so unorganized and they're so just lack any ability to control, or they're just not put together, or they're so inefficient, it might be that we wish we could be a little less controlling, that we wish we could go a little more with the flow. Or perhaps there's a desire within you to be more efficient, to be more in control. to be more conscious of your time and how you use it. So do you see how that works? We are always mirroring. There's some cases where maybe it's just like showing you something. It's not always that someone is mirroring to you. It might be a case of just increasing your awareness. But I would say that most relationships in our lives, especially the ones that trigger us the most, have the most to teach us. And the relationships that activate you the most, that bring up a lot of emotion, and especially the ones that were like, you make me feel this way all the time, that person and you most likely have a soul contract, most likely have an agreement that there is a particular lesson that your soul wants to learn from that person, and that person with so much love is going to show you how to learn that lesson, is going to help you because it's their soul agreed to it, and so did yours. And this comes to the root of shadow work. Shadow work, when you first hear the word, when you first think about it, when your ego thinks about it, maybe it sounds a little scary. Maybe it sounds like, I don't want to look in the shadows. I'm afraid to go into the dark. I just like being out here in the light all of the time. Except our shadow can show us powerful opportunities for self-love and acceptance. Our shadows really have the ability to discover these beautiful parts of us and help us be more integrated, help us be more whole. When we are just the light all the time and we're pushing away the shadow, pretending the shadow isn't there, and I'm just going to pretend or act or try to be happy all of the time, then really we are not being our whole self. It's not that you're not whole because the shadow's always there, but it's not integrated. You haven't allowed it to come together so that you can work as one. And when we are able to connect to, understand, listen to, and love our shadows, then we become more of our truth, more of our whole self. So I was watching a podcast this last weekend, and there were so many synchronicities as I was listening to this podcast because it's so much of what I wanted to share in this episode today. They were talking a lot about Egypt and like all of these things. But it was this podcast with Robert Grant and Matthias De Stefano. And these two divine, masculine, spiritual leaders, they are very prominent. They are very well known in the spiritual field right now, in the spiritual community. Robert Grant has almost like 1 million followers. And they are these beautiful channels of so much wisdom and knowledge. And they were talking a lot about the shadow and how this is where humanity is coming to right now. At this point, at this time on earth, it is so important for us to integrate the dark and the light because we've been in this phase, in this belief system of duality, of polarity, like one side's better than the other. It's better to be in your light than be in the dark. When actually we are all light, we are all dark. We all have both. And what these men were talking about, which I thought was so beautiful and profound, is that all of the things that are happening on this planet, all of the horrible, bad things, the war in Iran, the Jeffrey Epstein files, all of these things that we are like disgusted by and feel so much like banishing these people and saying how wrong it is. while yes, it is wrong and it's not appropriate, I'm not condoning war, I'm not condoning what Jeffrey Epstein and all of his people did. It's the knowing and the understanding that this has been going on for all of time. Wars have been happening. Children and women have been sexually abused. It's not like this is something new. It's just now it is being brought into the light. Now it is being brought into the light for us all to see. And so now we all see it. We all know what is happening. We can't shove it under the rug anymore. We can't pretend like it's not there. And so right now, it's our time here on earth to face it, to confront it, and to send it love. Because just like all of those bad guys that are out there, and just like your shadows that are within you, what it all needs is love. I'm not condoning this action in any way, but what it needs is to be seen and felt and understood in some way. Because when we see it, when we acknowledge it, that dissolves its power. That dissolves its power. So your shadows that are triggering you and causing these huge activations of anger, sadness, right? If we take a moment to pause and connect to the shadow, that dissolves its power. And after time, it doesn't have control over you anymore. It doesn't control your actions. It won't allow you to project anymore because you'll feel within yourself and you'll understand yourself so much more deeply. So I can feel the triggers. This is what happens when you're an empath and you have a podcast. The things that you say, you can already feel the triggers in the collective. And so maybe not everyone is ready to hear this, and that's okay. If you're listening to this and it resonates with you, then keep tuning in, keep listening, and give it some love. Because actually, by giving this episode some love, you are showing your shadow how much you love it, how much you love all the parts of you. And so how can you start to do your own shadow work? So it starts with inner reflection. So when you get triggered, why am I triggered? Let me take a moment to feel into this and think about it and understand it more and ask the questions. So I tell my clients this all the time. Self-reflection is asking yourself more and more questions. Wow, why was I triggered? I was triggered because this person said this thing to me. And how did that make me feel? It made me feel angry. Well, why am I angry? What is that showing me about myself? What does it remind me of? Did someone in my life when I was a little girl, when I was a little kid, did they say something like that? Or does that remind me of someone in my life from when I was younger, right? So you keep asking the questions till you get to the root of it. And then once you get to the root of it, it's like, I understand. I understand where this is coming from. So the shadow, whatever it is, I've done a lot of my own personal work with my shadow of abandonment, my shadow of anger, my shadow of rejection, my shadow of fear. And I know there's always more layers to explore, but I've gotten to the root of so many of those things. And so if the shadow still presents itself, when the shadow still comes up, I'm like, I get where this is. And that's the next step, is after the self-reflection, it's self-love. I get where this comes from. I'll share with my mom, who is schizophrenic, and she was hospitalized in a psych ward when I was 4 years old. That woman, my mom, she used to trigger me so much. Like everything she said, everything she did invoked a lot of anger within me. And this is another little nugget, another little lesson that I oftentimes share with my clients is that the thing that always precedes anger is fear. So deep-rooted fear causes anger because anger is actually a form of self-defense. When we get angry, we get really mad and fierce, like we're going to fight, right? And so it's actually a sympathetic response. A fight or flight response is to get angry. And it's because of fear. It's because we're trying to protect ourselves. And so my mom used to trigger so much anger within me. And because I was afraid again of being abandoned. All these old childhood wounds would come up. And so once I got to the bottom of that and understood, little Dana is still scared and terrified that she's losing her mom, that she's all alone. And she feels scared. And so when my mom, by just being herself and says the interesting, quirky things that she says, being a schizophrenic, it triggers me. It triggered me. And so now I know and understand, little Dana needs some love right now. Little Dana needs me not to abandon her. And I need to connect with her. This goes back to the inner child work of a previous episode, a very recent episode. So by showing myself that love, it dissolves the fear. Right now I'm safe. I'm not going to be abandoned. I'm not going to abandon myself. Right now I'm safe. It dissolves the fear, it dissolves the anger, and I can tell you I have such deeper connection with my mom in our own very unique way. It's probably very different from a lot of other mother and child relationships, but it's our connection, it's our relationship. And so that love, that self-love is so important. And the other thing is to get really curious. And it all kind of coincides together. It all wraps together as one. So we do the inner reflection, and part of the inner reflection is getting really curious with yourself. I love getting curious with myself. Like, what is all this about? Let's uncover this. Let's seek more. Let's be more of our own shaman. How can I bring all these parts of me together, retrieve these parts of my soul like a shaman would do? How can I bring myself together in a more connected way? Instead of keeping these parts of me separate, they're meant to work together. They're meant to be one. And so if you want to see change and transformation and an evolution, a revolution on this planet, where you can start is by doing your own shadow work. Because when you start to do the work, it emanates this healing energy out to everyone around you. And then maybe they get curious and maybe they want to explore their shadows. And it's not that we're forcing shadow work on anyone, because trust me, you can only change your own actions. You can only control your own actions. We can never force anything upon anyone, especially shadow work, because if someone's not ready for it, then they're going to push it away. But just energetically, when you become more integrated, when you become more whole, when you begin to recognize that these dark parts of me are just a part of who I am, they're a part of my human experience, and it's okay, then we start removing all of the power, all of the attention that all of these other dark actions and circumstances, we start removing the attention from them. And then we stop polarizing ourselves and we start coming more together as one. Because when I can see that someone else has darkness just like me, and you can see that you have darkness just like me, and we all have these dual parts of our being, then we understand each other and we can come more together as one instead of perpetuating all of the separation. It feels really important for me to point out that everyone is here to learn their own unique lessons and experiences. And again, this might be triggering for some to hear, but like on some level, this is what Jeffrey Epstein's soul chose. It chose to have this experience. And on some level, everyone involved with him, on a soul level, like, of course, your human consciousness would never be like, I'm going to choose to like be in his little ring. But on a soul level, everyone who was involved with him, their soul chose to have that experience. And it's coming back to the judgment. It's not our place to judge someone else's soul agreement, someone else's soul contract. Like literally, when I see circumstances or situations like that, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And yeah, there's a part of me that's like, wow, I'm glad my soul didn't choose that in this lifetime. But there's a part of me like, wow, that's interesting. Like that's an interesting way in which their souls want to learn. And just like with my mom and me, we have this soul contract. We had this agreement to come together on this planet and learn lots and lots of lessons together. And of course, again, your conscious mind, the ego, is going to be like, well, why would you ever choose this? And it's because we're all here creating this life experience, this human experience together. And with all of the darkness, with all of the light, and all of the possibility for learning that the darkness and the light create together, we are here to learn from all of that and to elevate our consciousness and our understanding and acceptance. So I know as a seeker and a shaman, shadow work is a part of who I am. It's a part of what I love to do. It's what I guide my clients through. And at the same time, I know, I have felt it, that sometimes that can trigger other people. When I am being who I am, when I'm sharing myself, my authenticity, my gifts with the world, I have felt it so many times, how triggering that can be for other people. And the old Dana used to feel the triggers. I still feel the triggers. And she would run away from them because she didn't want to make other people feel bad. There's that make word again, right? Because I felt the triggers. I knew that in some way, my energy, my essence, the way that I live my life was activating to some people. And so I learned to suppress my truth. I learned to suppress who I was. This is a big part of my book, How I Got My Dragon Back. It's a big part of what it's about. And then I realized that, oh, this is actually my purpose. It is my life path number. When you add up all the digits of my birthday, it equals 7. So it is written in the stars and in my DNA that I am here to be a seeker and a shaman. I am here to help people integrate all of their soul parts. And I can't do that unless I am authentic to who I am, regardless if I trigger people or not. And I am not intentionally triggering people. It's just who I am. It's my essence. It's my codes. It's my energy. And so as a healer, as a light and a shadow worker, please know that you might trigger people. You might have this ability to help people start to see what their own shadows are. And by doing so, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just being who you are on your soul's path and your soul's journey. And so every time I feel that someone else has been triggered, I remind myself, and it doesn't always feel good, right? Except I remind myself, like, I am here to be who I am and reflect opportunities for growth and healing to others. And maybe they don't see it right away. Maybe they just get triggered and say, oh, Dana makes me feel this way. But really, again, we are not responsible for other people's feelings. We're not meant to walk around on eggshells around other people's triggers. We are meant to be who we are. And more you are who you are, the more embodied you become. And the more you reflect your truth, your authenticity, your essence out into the world. And the more you are a beacon, the more you are a light, the more you are calling others, healers, I'm speaking to you, the more you are calling others to come and connect with you and receive from you. So, whether your life path number is a 7 or not, I know that everyone listening to this show has an element of the seeker and the shaman within them. And I know that if you're listening to this episode, that it might be time for you to explore some of these deeper levels of the shadow work. And again, not to look on it with fear or judgment. Because remember, we all have shadows. And if you think that you don't, then you've got even deeper inner work to do. And I say that with love. I say that with so much love. So, beautiful soul, if you want to learn more about me and what I offer, if you want to dive more deeply into the shadow work with me, head to my website, danatheresa.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at DanaTheresaStar. And hey, let's make this shadow work thing something that's really beautiful and something that's really interesting, because it is. It's not something that we have to be afraid of or that we have to keep in the shadows. We're meant to shine the light on the shadows so they can come together as one. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share this episode with someone who you feel might resonate with it, with someone who you feel might need it. It means the world to me, and it means the world. It literally means the world. So thank you, beautiful soul, for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'll see you soon. Namaste.